Good afternoon, all. Welcome to today's webinar, Synchro 11 Features. My name is Brooke McGee, and I'm a part of the marketing team here at Trafficware. I will be moderating today's webinar. That means I will help our presenter with any questions you may have, and I will help keep track of our time. Today we have Sharman Chodhuri, Product Specialist for Synchro Suite, leading our webinar. Sharman will provide a demonstration of the new features in Synchro 11. Should you have any questions during the webinar, please use the Q&A feature. You can find the Q&A feature in the control bar at the bottom of your screen. Simply click Q&A, a window will pop open. Type your question in there, and your question will be answered at the end of our presentation. This webinar is being recorded, and we'll send you a follow-up email with a link to that recording and some additional resources that will be helpful for you. So without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to Sharman. Sharman, let's get started.
Thank you, Brooke. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Synchro 11 New Features webinar. My name is Sharman Chodhuri, and I will be your presenter for today's presentation. So let's get started. Okay, so as we all know that today's presentation is focused on Synchro 11, but for the sake of the people who are hearing us for the first time or maybe thinking about using Synchro, let's have a little background about Synchro first, and then we will talk about Synchro 11 features, okay? So let's see, what is Synchro Studio? Synchro Studio is a robust, easy to use traffic signal analysis software. Here I mentioned about traffic signal analysis software because this is what Synchro is originally made for. However, in today's date, Synchro supports unsignalized intersection as well as roundabouts. Synchro allows you to analyze, optimize, design, model, simulate, and animate both signalized and unsignalized intersections. Starting from our version 9, Synchro also allows you to compute trip distribution and trip assignment for TIA analysis. However, when we talk about Synchro, this is just a product of a whole suite of products, which we called Synchro Studio, which obviously includes Synchro because Synchro is our flagship product. Synchro helps you to design, model, and optimize traffic signal infrastructure. We also have another app, which is SimTraffic. This is a kind of a simulation app. So you are always getting SimTraffic when you are purchasing Synchro and vice versa. SimTraffic allows you to simulate real-world vehicular and pedestrian traffic scenarios. Besides these two products, as an add-on, we have a 3D viewer, which is a 3D viewing tool. What it does is it takes your two-dimensional animation model from SimTraffic and creates a three-dimensional animation, which is a great resource for presentation, right? Besides these three products under Synchro Studio, we have two supplemental modules. You could buy those modules as a standalone product, or you could buy them as an add-on of Synchro Studio products. Those two products are Warrants and TripGen. Both the names are quite self-explanatory. So if I talk about Warrants, Warrants allows you to evaluate a network of intersection according to the MUTCD guidelines for signalization. In today's Warrant, means our latest version of Warrants also supports the always stop control intersection. TripGen helps you to calculate the expected number of trips based on the data from the i3 trip generation manual. The latest version of TripGen supports the latest version of IT trip generation manual, which is version 10. Synchro Studio have been in the industry for more than 20 years, which combines the deterministic modeling tools, which is Synchro, with the microscopic simulation tool, which is SimTraffic. Okay? This is a very easy to use software and highly adaptable with many different scenarios. The most recent version of Synchro supports multiple similar scenarios in a single Synchro file. Okay? Also, with any other version of Synchro, it supports multiple different analysis methods, starting from HCM 6th edition, HCM 2010, HCM 2000, Synchro's own percentile delay method, which is the Trafficware proprietary one, also the ICU, which is intersection capacity utilization, and SimTraffic. As SimTraffic is a simulation tool, it will also gives you the report based on your simulation data. Okay, so now let's jump in and start talking about Synchro 11. Synchro 11 has released on December 9, 2019. It comes with new level of convenience and improved productivity. Version 11 introduces global Bing map as default Synchro background and much anticipated scenario manager. Now in version 11, Bing map is the default Synchro background instead of the solid green background, whichever you had in previous version of Synchro, which increases the efficiency of coding a Synchro network without putting any extra effort into importing the background image. It also assures that the Synchro network is scaled properly and follows accurate latitude and longitude. The scenario manager combines similar multiple scenarios into a single file formatting, which simplifies the electronic file management while also reducing the development time and maintenance. A significant benefit of Scenario Manager within Synchro 11 is the mitigation of coding error that are very possible when managing multiple files with similar data. Okay? It also allows you to quick switch between scenarios, allowing for easier analysis of results with different volume and or timing data. Okay, so let's first talk about Bing Map, and then we will talk about the Scenario Manager. As I mentioned earlier, that with Synchro 11, you will have the Bing Map as a default background instead of the solid green background of Synchro, whichever you have with any previous version of Synchro. Okay, so when you in Synchro 11, you open the software, a search bar will automatically open for you. You can see here that this bar will be opening for you. And then what you need to do is you just need to type in the location where you want to have your network. Okay, you type in and you will see there is a search button. You just need to hit that button, or you could hit enter from your keyboard, and then the software will take you to the location of your network. Now you just need to draw a single intersection. It could be a node, it could be a complete intersection, doesn't matter. After that, you just need to make sure that your network is anchored with the map. To do that, you just need to draw a network on top of the map, and you need to anchor it by using this button here. However, let me do one thing. Let me open up the software and walk you through the whole process. Sometimes it's easier if I show you the process rather than I just talk. Okay, so let me actually open up the software for you. Okay, so this is how Synchro 11 looks like. So when you open Synchro, you will look something like that with the map background itself. And you see, I just open up the software and it opens up a search bar for me automatically. I didn't need to do anything with that. However, we do it when you open software for the first time, but for any reason, if you want to change something and if you want to see all the functionality under the Bing, you just need to click that button on the left side. Okay, so when you will click it, it will open up all the settings for you. Okay, Like right now, if I close it, it will close the options. If I hit the Bing button, it will actually open up the options for me. So let's see what I just explained. Let me search for a location where I want to have my network. So I'll search for something 522 Dillingham Lane, Texas. I could hit the search button from here, or I could hit enter from my keyboard, whatever you prefer. Right now, I'll hit the search button, and it exactly takes me the location where I want to be. Okay, so this is the location where I want to be. Now let's assume I wanna actually draw these three intersections from here to here. So let's start drawing it. Let's first draw the first intersection because I wanna actually anchor the network with the Bing map. What I meant about anchoring the network with Bing map is, right now I just draw a node, right? I didn't put any other data in it. Not necessary before you even like anchor it. So now if I use the panning tool, you see the network is movable, right? It's not anchored, properly anchored to the location where I want to do it. This functionality is a purposeful functionality. We actually purposely put it there to give you the flexibility to adjust your network. Okay, so let's say this is here. If by accident I create it by accident here, what I gonna do? I need to shift the position, right? So by having that functionality, you are really having that flexibility to adjust and readjust your network. However, right now, I feel this is the good place to have my network in, or to have that particular intersection in. I'm gonna come here and hover on that icon. It will show me click to anchor. That means if I click that, my network will be anchored with the Bing map. See, now I am using the panning tool, but network is not moving. It's completely anchored. However, at some point, if you feel, oh, I need a little more adjustment, go there and you see, like when I anchored it, the button color has been changed. It was black and white. Now it's blue and green. Now, if I click it again, I can readjust it again. And after doing all the readjustment, when I feel comfortable, I go back and anchor it. So that's it, like very easy to go. And now when you do that, just go ahead and draw this node, draw this node, and then after that, you can just pull in the information, what you want to pull in, the geometry information, layers, volumes, whatever. Now you are done with the Bing map functionality, right? So again, if you move it, the network is anchored properly, you are good to go. Okay. Now, the common question could be, is it compatible with the other version, with the previous version of Synchro, right? Because you might have many different files in 10 or maybe in 9, and you want to use it in 11. What you gonna do? Okay. So there could be two different scenarios that in previous versions, for example, in 10 and 9, you never use Bing map. You never use that functionality. No problem. When you open up in Synchro 11, at first it will open up the network in some random location. So what you need to do is you just need to follow the steps I just show you, and then anchor, and then take the network to the proper location, anchor it with the map. If you already use the functionality, what we have as a Bing region, that you can actually like grab a region from the Bing map and then put it in Synchro. If you already use that and you had a valid reference point already in your 10 or 9 file, if you open up it in 11, you should not do anything. You should see that the network is exactly open up in the location you save it in 10 and 9. That's how we actually try to convert the reference point to lat long, so that you don't need to do any extra hassle on that. Okay. Let me show you 2 examples. Let me open up a file that I create it in 10, and if in the first file, I create it with a reference point, meaning that I use the being map functionality in my 10 or 9 file. This is the 10 file. I'll try to open it here, and which had a valid reference point. So right now, if I open up it in 11, let's see what it does to me. See what? It exactly opened the network in the exact location how I put it in my 10 file, because I used that functionality beforehand. Now, if you click Bing, you will see this is a mark that the network is anchored properly. If you want to move it, you can, but your network will not move. It is actually properly anchored. So no extra hassle on that part. However, again, that could be really possible that you never use that functionality in 10 or 9. What you're going to do with the files when you open up in Synchro 11. So let's again open another file, which I know that I didn't have any reference point, and I'll actually open the same network where I actually didn't put any reference point in my 10 file. So this is without reference point. Let's open it. Now you see, I have the same network, but it just open it up in a random location. Now what I want to do is I want to search for the location where I want to have my network in. So as far as I remember, it was somewhere in East Front Street, Kansas City. So I search it, I hit the search button. You see, it takes me to the location where I want to be, very close to that. Now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna move the network to match the location. So now let's say I move it and I feel, okay, it's a pretty good match. I go ahead, hit anchor. Now my network is properly anchored and I can move it and the network will not move. So that's how, like if you never use that in your previous version, start using it from here. If you already have a valid reference point, you don't need to go through any extra hassle on that, okay? Okay, I think that's it about being map. Let me move into the next slide. Okay. Okay, now we'll start talk about scenario manager. Okay, so now when you open up Synchro, you will notice there is another button called Scenario Manager, which will actually have all the functionality under Scenario Manager. Now let's see what Scenario Manager does. So Scenario Manager saves multiple different scenarios to a single Synchro file. So what it means? It means that with Scenario Manager, you can save multiple similar scenarios in single Synchro file, which allows you to reduce the number of Synchro files needed for same network, right? This is a very common use, like you have a same network, but you want to have the AM peak timing, PM peak timing, AM peak volume, PM peak volume. So with the previous version of Synchro, you need to have completely separate files. This is for AM peak, this is for PM peak. Although you have the same network, the change is only the timing and volume, right? With Scenario Manager in Synchro 11, it will mitigate that issue. You will have the same network with different timing and volume. So with saying that, meaning that you can change the timing plan for each scenario separately, right? Because like, for example, if you have AM peak, PM peak, midday, most of the cases, the timing is not exactly same, right? So you want to have different timing in your different scenarios. So you can do it with Scenario Manager. Same applies to volume. It will also allow you to have completely different volume in your each scenario. For the geometry, Scenario Manager sync the geometry across all the scenarios. If you change the geometry in one place, the other scenarios will automatically get that geometry change. You don't need to go to every scenario to change that, because the main idea here is to have the same network geometry and have different timing and volume in your different scenarios. Okay. Okay, as you can see, we have the scenario manager button here. If you click it, it will open up the options. In the next slide, I'll actually explain the options, what each options means. And also here, you also saw a little scenario switcher. And by using this, you can easily switch between scenarios. And I'll actually show you in the software how it looks like, okay? Now, let me actually open up a file. Okay, before I even open up a file, let me actually explain the scenario manager window a little bit, okay? So you hit that button in Synchro 11, it will open up a window like that, okay? So obviously the cross one is like if you wanna close the scenario manager window, you'll just cross it, it will close your scenario manager window. If you wanna open it, you just need to hit that button from here. Now you see that there is two different buttons here. One is actually expand all, one is actually collapse all. So like expand all means that in this particular window, you can see I have three different scenarios, AM peak, off peak, and PM peak. Let's say I wanna see all the information from all my scenario in single screen, right? So on that case, I will click expand all. It will expand all of my scenario with all the description. Okay. Now, if I hit collapse all, it will collapse the description. So I can only see the scenario name. This is my M peak, off peak, PM peak. Okay. So this is the purpose of this expand all and collapse all. So let's say you collapse all these scenarios. Okay. So now, right now, your only focus is M peak. So you will focus on M peak, and you want to expand the M peak, but you don't want to expand the off peak and PM peak. You just want them to be collapsed. On that case, what you just need to do is you just need to individually collapse them. So this button is actually individual collapse button. So if you want to collapse the off peak, you just need to hit that. It will actually collapse the information, the description. You will just see the name of the scenarios. Okay. Same to PM peak, same to AM peak. At some reason, everything is collapsed. Now you think, oh, I want to actually expand the PM peak to see some information. You just need to hit that button. So when you have the collapse mode, you'll see the button will change to that, allowing you to expand the scenario. Okay. So that's it. And then you also see there is a button, the trash can, which is actually delete. So if you want to delete the scenario, you just need to hit the delete button. Obviously, Synchro will pop you up, like if you want to delete it or not. If you say yes, you can just like easily delete the scenario. However, which is very important, this one. This is actually work as a save scenario button. Why it is very important? Because of the backward compatibility. Okay, so let's assume you are working on 11 and you are working with another team who, or maybe you are an agency guy, you are working with a consultancy, or vice versa. One group has Synchro 11, another group has 10, and they are actually planning on upgrade to 11, but not yet. But right now you need to get the work done, right? So on that case, you need to have that file, you need to have the option that you can open the file in 10 and 11 in both cases, right? Also, it could happen that you are working in a team and you are the owner of that project. However, you have 10 different scenarios, but you hire an intern and you just wanna give intern a particular scenario to work with. Or maybe it could be any other colleague, you just want to split the work. On that case, you also want to have that option to split the scenarios from one to another, right? In another Synchro file. So this save scenario option will allow you to do that. So if you hit that save scenario option and you just want to save off-peak scenarios in a single Synchro 11 file, you can do that by saving that particular scenario. Also, this will work as a save down. You just need to make sure that you save it down to 10 and 11, and the 10 and 11 user can open that file. This functionality is very important because Synchro 11 supports multiple different scenarios, but the other version doesn't, right? So we need to make sure when we open up a file in Synchro 10 or 9 that it has only one scenario instead of multiple scenarios in Synchro 11, okay? From 9 to 10, when you are coming to 11, it's straightforward. You can just open that file and it will open up it in 11. But when you are going back from 11 to 10 and 9, make sure that you save down that particular scenario to the version you want to open it up. Okay, so that's why I'm kind of like prioritizing this option a little bit more for you. Also, you might notice that there is an option called activate. These two options you see activate, but in AMPIC you see active. Okay, so as you all know that in Synchro, you can, in the UI portion, in the grids, you can show the information from one scenarios, right? It could be volume, it could be timing, to make it more solid. So whatever scenarios you are working on, or you want to do any operation, make sure that you activate that particular scenario. So if this is in my Synchro, it actually indicates me that my AMPIC scenario is active. Whatever data I will see in my Synchro screen is come from AMPIC. Okay. If I wish to see something from PMPIC, you need to make sure that you activate it. When you hit the activate button, it will change it to active, and then whatever data you will see in Synchro comes from the PMPIC data. Okay. Also, you might notice in the AMPIC, when the scenario is active, you don't have any delete button. Okay. So we purposely made that so that you don't actually accidentally delete in the scenario you are working on. Okay. So if you want to delete that, make sure to inactivate it first and then delete it. Okay. Now here, okay, come here. So duplicate the scenarios. You can easily duplicate from one scenario to another, and this will be very common while you are using Scenario Manager, because you want to duplicate the network, right? But you will change the timing and volume on top of that. Copy data from one to another scenario. You can do that coming here. So if you want to copy some data from off-peak to PM-peak, you can do that in Synchro. However, I will actually show that how you will do it in Synchro itself. Okay, before I open up the software, I just want to mention another things, right? I am till now talking about the Scenario Manager. You can have different timings, different volumes in many different scenarios. Also, you might notice that I always prioritize the point that you need to have the same network, because if you change that value, any network value like the geometry, the number of lanes in one scenario, it will sync up to other scenarios as well. Okay, so I know like you understand that, but for the so that you always be mindful about what is scenario and what is not scenario, what is a network, we actually include that two different kind of icons with all the data entry grid. In the left hand side, I already mentioned the data entry grid. So if you open up those data entry grid, you will notice that there are two different icons. So when you see a box overlapping, two boxes overlapping with each other, meaning that that particular parameter is shared across all these scenarios. Okay. So whatever you change in one scenario, it will taken by the other scenario as well. If you have a single boxes, that means that you can change the scenario information completely separately. For example, peak hour factor. In one scenario, you could have peak hour factor 0.92. In another scenario, you can have peak hour factor 0.95. Okay, so all the other parameters are scenario. So whatever you change in one scenario, it will not affect your other scenarios. But in this case, if you change it in one scenario, obviously it will actually affect your other scenarios. Okay. Now, let me actually open up Synchro 11 and show you the process. Okay, so this is actually a file. I just moved it from Synchro 10. So this is one of my Synchro 10 file. Now I am in Synchro 11, and now I want to work with Scenario Manager. Okay, let's assume the scenario. Now, my first thing is, let's see what do we have in Scenario Manager. So you see the information. So, okay, so let's talk about the description a little bit here as well. So name is the name of the scenario. Description, if you have any project description, which is actually related to that Synchro file, you can keep it here. Data, and time, from which date and from which time the data is actually collected from, you can put it there. If you have any alternative information, put it there. This is the timing plan ID. Either it's AM peak, PM peak, off peak, midday. You can put it here. Analyst, you can put your name, you can put your agency name, however you prefer to do it. So these information already taken care of because I actually include those information in Synchro 10 under the scenario properties. There is a window called scenario properties, right? You could put all the information there and it will actually reflect in your report. So I already did that in Synchro 10. While I open it in Synchro 11, I got all the information, okay? Doesn't matter if you don't have the information, you just go ahead and actually type it in. You can do that, okay? By default, it gives the first scenario name as a scenario 1, which is a default setup because Synchro, the software itself, doesn't know how you want to call that particular scenario. So that's why it's a scenario 1. Now you can go ahead and name the scenario. So seeing all the description, I already have the idea that it is something from PMP. So I will name it as a PMP. Okay. So now I have the PMP scenarios. Let's do one thing. Let's focus on one particular intersection and see how it compares through the intersections, through these scenarios, okay? So let's focus on this intersection. And now, let's say now I wanna create a MPIC scenario with different timing and different volume, okay? So how am I gonna do that? The first thing first is to duplicate the scenario because I want to have all the network information in my next scenario, although I will change the volume and timing later on, but let's first duplicate so that we can have most of the information in my other scenario already transferred. So now if I want to duplicate the scenario, I want to come here. So now as I have only one scenario and that is selected, it's showing me that duplicate PMP. Yes, I am duplicating PMP. As I mentioned, I want something with MPIC. I will name it as a MPIC. Okay. Description, I'll not put so many information here, or maybe doesn't matter. Oh, sorry. Doesn't matter. I'll put description. Data, date, and time. I want to have the exact date and time will be MPIC. So I will click that and it will give me a calendar selection somewhere from September, I think 24th, right? Yes. Now let's say my PMPIC is 8 a.m. MPIC is 8 a.m. Sorry. If I press OK, it will give me the time, it will give me the date. Alternative, I'm not putting anything. MPIC, hit duplicate. See what? Now I have another scenario called MPIC. As I duplicate it, everything should be exactly same. So now I activate my MPIC. Whatever data I saw in PMPIC, exactly I have in my MPIC, right? No change. But the purpose of Scenario Manager is to allow you to have changes. What data? The scenario data. What is the scenario data? Timings, volumes, network settings, which are related. But networks and geometry data needs to be same in all the other scenarios. So let's go ahead and do some changes. Now I will change some data in MPIC. So let's go to the volume first. Now I will change the volume for, okay, let's change something for northbound. Only I'll change the through volume. Southbound, I'll change the through volume as well. I just don't wanna put so many differences. So if I go back now, and now I am in my MPIC, southbound and northbound has 1000 and 700. If I activate the PMPIC, you see you have completely different volumes, right? So that actually give you the fact that you can have it. And also if you notice the data, whatever I just changed, it's the traffic volume and it's a single box. That means it's a scenario specific data, right? Now let's change something on the timings. I am in MPIC. Okay. So another easy way to know, like when you are in a grid, in which scenario you are in, you see in the top, because it's not always very comfortable every time or convenient opening the scenario manager and see, oh, which scenario is active and whatever data I'm looking at. Okay, so I would always encourage you to, like, if you are in a grid, see here, you see, like you can see the AM peak. That means whatever data you are changing here will be AM peak data. So let me change something as well, as I was kind of like focusing on northbound and southbound. I'll change the I will change it from protected to permitted, protected to permitted. And then I will also do some optimization for fun. I will change the phasing a little bit. What can I change? Okay, so the recall is maximum. Let's change the recall to minimum. Okay, now I should expect different data in different scenarios because I just changed it, right? And these are all scenario specific. So I'm in AM peak, my northbound left and southbound left is permitted. Let's see. If I hit PM peak, I should expect to see as a protected data, right? So if I hit PM peak, yes, it is protected. So you can comfortably change the data. Now go back to AM peak again. Oops, sorry. Go back to AM peak again, hit phasing. In AM peak, I make the phasing for 2 and 5 as a recall mode minimum. And in PM peak, it should show me the maximum. It is, right? So these are the changes you can make. Also, as I mentioned, that when we are talking about the geometry data or the network data, and when you see there is actually two boxes overlapping each other, and if you hover the mouse on that, you will see shared across all the scenarios. Meaning, if you change something in one scenario, it will take up by the other scenario. Okay, so be very careful when you are changing this, because the idea of this version is to have the network same all over the scenarios. Okay. So for example, I had a 2 eastbound left lane. So if I somehow change the mind and I want to have a 1 eastbound left lane, you will see if I hit AM peak, it also changed here because that's shared across all the scenarios. Okay, so if you are changing this, be mindful that it will also affect your other scenarios. However, when you have single box, change it, it will only affect that particular scenario. Okay. Okay, now we already learned about the duplicate. We learned how to change the data. So now let's actually create another scenario from MP. Yeah, I can. Because I want to show you the option, like how can you transfer data in between scenarios. So let me create a third scenario, call maybe, what can I call? Midday. Okay. So now I am actually duplicating the AM peak, right? I select it and it's showing me duplicate AM peak. So right now I am duplicating the AM peak. So whatever I got here, I should expect the same value, whatever I have in AM peak. Let's change the time. Oops, sorry, it was 24th. Let me do the maybe midday, what, 1 p.m. Okay, so hit duplicate. So now I have the third scenario, which is exactly same as my AM peak because I just duplicate it, right? If I hit that, no changes. Okay. Now, for example, or for the sake of demo, let's say that I wanna transfer the some data, let's say the volume data from PM peak to midday. Okay, what I gonna do? Okay, so I am good with all the timings data, whatever I have in I got from AM peak, but for some reason, I wanna actually incorporate the volume data from PM peak to my midday, let's say for some analysis purposes, how I can do that. So when you select midday, it will not help you to actually do the job I just explained. What you need to do is you need to select the scenarios from where you want to actually copy the data. So as I mentioned that I want to copy the volume from PM peak to midday. So I select the PM peak. Now it's showing me copy data from PM peak. Yes, I want to copy data from PM peak. Now here comes to copy data to. So I know that I want to copy data to midday. Okay. However, if you want to copy data to multiple scenarios, you can select multiple scenarios from here. But right now, as I mentioned that I'm only concerned about midday, I'll uncheck the AM peak. Okay. As I mentioned, you could actually transfer timings, volumes, network settings, but right now I'm concerned about volume. So I just hit volume, hit copy. It notifies, yes, the data copied successfully, press OK. Now, if I hit PM peak, this is 776.1049. So if I hit midday now, I should expect the same data, right? That changes at least. 776.1049. So you can easily transfer data between scenarios using the copy data from functionality, okay? Also, if you hit file, there is also option to do save scenarios. So you could do save scenarios from here, or you could do save scenarios from here, okay? Whatever you prefer. Now, let me see. Okay, so till now I was talking about Synchro, but Scenario Manager also supports by SimTraffic. So you can have different scenarios in SimTraffic, and the calibration parameter, in the calibration parameter, you can have completely different calibration parameter, because calibration parameters are actually roaming around the vehicles, the drivers, because maybe in one peak, your driver's behavior is different than in other peak, because off peak and AM peak, there could be different drivers behavior, right? So that you can have that option to do. Let me actually show you a little glance of it. I'll actually use the file I just created here. If I hit SimTraffic, yeah, I want to save the changes. Okay, so you saw like I had a last scenario activate, which was midday, and when you open SimTraffic, it will open the activate scenario first. And then now you can, if you actually want to go to AM peak, it will record the AM peak data. If you go to PM peak, it will also record the PM peak data, and you can create the reports out of it, okay? Also, the calibration parameter, these are scenario wise, so you can have completely different calibration parameter in your different scenarios, okay? So SimTraffic, the main information to you is SimTraffic is also supported by the scenario manager, okay? Okay. Now the optimization. So in previous version, you might notice that when you do optimization, with each iteration of optimization, it will create different Synchro file if you allow Synchro to create it. Instead of this option, there is an option that create different files out of your each iteration. So because we didn't have that option earlier, now if you wanna actually have those different iteration in a single Synchro file, you can have it, which means now if you go to simulation, hit I think cycle length, then I have the minimum 130, maximum 150, and with 10 seconds increment. And if I hit create scenarios for each cycle, if I don't hit that, it will just actually optimize my present scenario, and it will not create any iteration. That means there will be 3 iterations, right? 130, 140, 150. If I just don't hit that button, it will have 1 iteration. But if I hit that button and press yes. Now I should see that it popped up 3 different Synchro scenario based on the optimization iteration. So if I come back here, I was working with the midday. Now it creates the midday 130, midday 140, midday 150. If I didn't click that button, maybe if you don't need to, don't click that button, okay? Just uncheck that and you are good to go. We just like have it for you if you need that, okay? Another changes is not changes, I would say it's a little improvement for the transfer merge file. Yes. So let's say I want to select this, open. Okay. For another reason, whatever operation you are doing, it could be optimization, it could be merge, make sure that you are on the correct scenarios. That means if I'm in midday, whatever change it gonna make by my operational changes like optimization or merging, it will only affect the particular scenarios. Okay, so that's another information for you. Now let's say you are exchanging data from one 11 file to another in 11 file which had multiple scenarios, right? It could happen because with 11 file, that's the purpose. So whenever you have these multiple scenarios, these options will give you to choose from which scenario you want to merge in the data. Okay, so that's one thing. Another thing is if you don't have any extra scenarios, it will just not show you anything. It will just like, it will be hazy or will show you the single scenarios. But if you have multiple scenarios, now you have the option. Okay, so for example, right now I am in midday. Now I wanna incorporate the off peak, and I wanna incorporate the volume and timing. I don't wanna update the scenario information, or maybe I do, doesn't matter. If I press OK, you will see right now my midday is replaced by off peak, and all the other information is come from off peak. Okay, so that's a little enhancement revolving around scenario manager, so that it will actually give you the options to choose between the scenarios. Okay. Okay. I think this is the end of my prepared presentation for you. If you have any purchasing and pricing questions, please send us email to trafficwaresales@cubic.com. The other media for asking us question is right now, I think I have some questions already waiting for me. I'll answer them through my webinar. We also have the Trafficware forum. You can actually post your question there, and engineers from different part of the world will try to help you. And we have the support. You can actually directly send us the support if you have the valid support and maintenance contract with us. Now let's move in and see how many questions I have from your side. Okay, so the first question is from Georges. Can we have multiple years in the scenario manager? And can we change the geometry for a particular scenarios? Okay. The first thing, can we have multiple years in scenario manager? I feel you are actually talking about the existing scenario and the future scenarios after, let's say, 2 or 3 years, or maybe 10 years. Yes, you can have it, but only if you have the changes in timings and volumes, not the changes in geometry. So right now the scenario manager doesn't allow you to have different geometries in different scenarios. That also answers your next question, because you mentioned that can we change the geometry for particular scenario? You can change it, but you just need to be careful, because that change will also happen in your other scenario. Okay, so if you have any geometry changes and which is different than one scenario to another, I would suggest you to have separate file. But if that changes actually applies to all your scenarios, yes, go ahead and do that. But the purpose of the first version of scenario manager is to have same geometry in all over the scenario with different timing and volume. Okay. Okay, the next question is from Christopher. Can you use lat long coordinates in the search being map? Yes, you can. If you search it, it will actually take you to the location. Yes. Alicia, the question from her is, can you transpose the Bing network so that it matches the lat long that matches our GIS network? So the same thing, if you know the lat long, you just like type in the lat long in the search bar. Bing map should take you to the location where you have your GIS network. Okay. Patrick, the questions from him is how many scenarios can you have? Okay, so right now we didn't limit that. I think it also depends on the space you have in your computer, because it's a memory thing as well, because it will actually eat up a lot of memory. So we didn't actually kind of limit that, but depends on your storage. If you have like a lot of storage free, you can have many scenarios you want to. Okay. The same questions from Alicia. Is there a max number of scenarios? No, right now we don't, but it will actually, it needs to be compatible with your storage. Okay. Okay, so question from Patrick. Can you import the timing from a Synchro file created by an earlier version of Synchro and store it in scenario in Synchro 11? Yes, absolutely. You just need to use the merge functionality I just show you. So just use the merge functionality and drag in the full file you from 10 and select timing to that particular scenario, and you can just merge the timing only from that particular scenario. Yes, you can absolutely do that. Okay. Can we, okay, the question from Bharat was, can we turn off the background? Yes, you can. In Synchro 11, so you see there is a little globe. This is actually the toggle Bing map on and off. So when it's like black, blue and green, that means the Bing map is on. If you click that, it will take some time, obviously, with the network, but you can turn it off. Okay. Okay, now. Okay. I got another question. I have existing Synchro files for various roadway network in version 9. Can I add Beam? Can I add Beam background? I have existing Synchro files for, this is questions from Muhammad. Existing Synchro versions for various roadway network in version 9. Can I add Beam background? For version 9, yes, you cannot use the live Bing map, but you have an option that you can actually cache the Bing region and use it in your file. You can. Okay, so I have another question, which is like pretty big. Let me just read. Ron, please explain that any changes made in scenarios for adding streets and lanes will automatically go to all scenarios. But because unsynchronized intersections are not considered linked, the stop sign control does not transfer to all scenarios, and you must go through all scenarios and change each one. It is better to create a baseline scenario and have it complete all unsynchronized intersections and then duplicate for all scenarios. You are going to have AM, PM, midday and weekend. Yes, that's a good suggestion, Ron. Thank you for that. Yes, for the unsignalized intersection, the control type, which is the stop sign, is actually scenario wise. So you can have different control type in different scenarios, but as it's completely tied with the geometry, my suggestion is exactly same how Ron suggested. So first fix it with one scenario and then continue with the other scenario, instead, like when you are actually working with the unsignalized intersection. Okay.
Hey, Sharman, we also have some questions that were sent in the chat. So if you pull that open, I can read them for you if you'd like, to make it easier, because there were quite a few messages sent back and forth.
I see. Yeah. Can you then read it for me? Yeah, I can see there are like a lot of messages. It's like sometimes hard to find. Yeah. Can you just read the questions for me? I'll try to answer.
Okay. From Christina, you can open any older versions such as 9 with Synchro 11. Also, will the output results match 9 to 11?
Yes, yes, it is completely like compatible. And it depends on which results you are looking at. If it's synchro, we didn't change any the methodology from 6 to 9, 9 to 11. Yes, you can actually open it in synchro 11, and you should give you the similar results. Yes.
Okay, I think you may have already answered this one, but we'll read it aloud just to be sure. Can you change geometry in the scenario manager for mitigation items, but you need to hold the base geometry for existing conditions?
Yes, so the geometry changes needs to happen in all the scenarios, meaning like if you change geometry in one scenario, it will automatically sync up to your other scenarios, right? So if you have geometry changes, I would suggest you not to use scenario manager, use different synchro files. If you have any other changes like timings and volume, use the scenario manager. Okay.
Okay, and this one you already answered that there's not a maximum limit on scenarios. It just depends on your storage capabilities.
Yes, that is right.
From Christina, can you run SimTraffic to show queue analysis?
Yes, you can. You can. There is a in SimTraffic you can actually create the queue analysis report. There is a report section. You can run the simulation and run the report. It will give you the queue analysis report. Yes.
Okay. What about having different traffic operations for each scenario?
Could you? Is it? I think from Hussain, I guess.
Yes.
Could you explain a little more? What do you mean by different traffic operation? Like, if you could explain a little more, then I would give you the answer. It will help me to dig in more. What do you mean by traffic operation?
Hussein, if you'd like to send in a message where you did in the chat just to explain, to clarify a little more what you mean by that, Sharman will be happy to answer.
Yes, sure.
And also, we do have a few more minutes, so if anyone else has a question that they haven't had the opportunity to ask yet, please be sure to do so by clicking on the Q&A feature.
Yeah, yes, sure. We have like few minutes left, so you guys are still welcome to ask us questions. We'll try to answer.
And while we give everyone a few minutes to type in their remaining questions, I just want to remind you that we will be sending a follow-up email with a recording of today's webinar, along with some additional resources. You can also stay up to date with all things Trafficware by following us on social media at Trafficware on Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn.
Okay, so I think in Q&A, I got another question. Can we import image as a background? Yes, you can. We still have that option. We didn't take off that option. So in Synchro under the map settings, let me see if I can open one for you. So if you are here, so you see there is a background image list. We still have that option. So yes, you can actually import an image.
Okay, Sharman, from Christina, would you be able to show how to run it now, SimTraffic, different traffic control devices? Do we have time to show like a quick example?
I am not sure about what you mean by different traffic control devices. Hey, Christina, why don't you just send me your questions with with more explanation? It will help me to understand. Okay, then I can actually continue the discussion with you. And I think Hussain also come back and he mentioned split place operation versus normal. Yes, you can do that. Yes, that's a scenario property as well. Hussain. Yes, you can do that. Yeah. And yeah, and for Christina, please shoot me an email, and then I'll actually take the discussion from there. Okay. Okay, so for traffic operation control type, it showed that it's the same across all scenarios. Can that be different by scenarios, actuated coordinated versus actuated uncoordinated? Yes, actuated coordinated versus actuated uncoordinated, yes, you can have it. So between the signalized intersection, like pre-timed, actuated coordinated, actuated uncoordinated, and another one is semi-actuated, you can actually have that changes in different scenarios. you are right. But you cannot change between signalized and unsignalized intersection because it will affect your network. But within the signalized intersection, you can have it scenario wise. So in one intersection, in one scenario, you can have actuated uncoordinated. In another scenario, you can have actuated coordinated. Answering if that also answers Christina's questions. I am answering Alicia's question now.
Christina said yes.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
All right, well, we've reached the end of our time for today. Thank you everyone so much for joining us, and keep your eyes open for that email that we'll be sending shortly with the follow-up information.
Thank you so much for your time and attention.